Hello. Welcome. This is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and I'm here with a Hebrunes reading for you today. We're going to be picking 3 cards. This will be a timeless reading. You can, whenever you find it, it's meant to find you. We're going to pull out 3 tarot cards just from the Rider Waite deck, and then we're going to do a full spread reading for each of these cards. So you can click the timestamp down below to determine which reading you're called to today. So I'll pull out 3 cards to help you find the reading that is meant for you. And since we are in the middle of March at this time when I'm doing the reading, I'm thinking a lot about the Ides of March and that sort of a betrayal that took place in that Shakespeare play, Julius Caesar. And so, yeah, however that resonates for you, whether you're somebody who is concerned about being betrayed or has experienced a betrayal, maybe that's the theme here. But wherever you are, whenever you find this is fine. And we'll look at these 3 cards today. Let's take a look. Okay, for card number 1, we have the 9 of Pentacles. Lovely. For card number 2, we have the Queen of Pentacles. A lot of powerful earth-based imagery here today. And for number 3, another Pentacles, the 3 of Pentacles. Okay, so take a moment to discern which of these 3 cards is speaking to you today in terms of your reading. And I will put the timestamps down below, and I will see you there. Okay, card number 1, for those of you who chose the 9 of Pentacles, you can see that you have this figure standing in a garden, this blossoming with all kinds of fruit, particularly earth fruit. This Pentacles idea is this concept of something that's very grounded. And this woman is very relaxed in her place. She's got looks like a kestrel on her hand that is ready to go out and hunt for her. And she looks very relaxed and very content in her garden. So however that resonates for you right now, the 9 is frequently speaking to the fact that things are coming to some sort of completion soon. And this one looks like a prosperous and contented completion. So what we'll do today with our Hebrunes is we're going to take the entire set and cast them. And the way we do this is we put the entire set down on the table. Let me move her back over here, in fact. And then whichever runes turn up face down, we remove those, and then we read the rest based on what is left. So let's see what comes up today. I'm just going to spread those out. Okay. So then we're going to take away everything that is face down, except the blank, which is the same face up or face down. Okay. And then I'm going to rotate these so that they are all upright in terms of, that one's face down. I wasn't able to see that. There it is. Okay. I'm going to turn all of these so they're upright in their place. And then we're going to take a look at the entire set together. All right, so that's our reading. And the way we're going to look at this is I'm discerning that the central line here is the path line. Anything that's above that line is considered something that is maybe beneficial for you or coming down from the divine. And anything that's below that line may represent a fear or some kind of difficulty, a challenge right now. And I'm a person who reads left to right, so from where I'm sitting, the left side is going to be what we are considering past, and the right side is what we're going to be considering to come. And the first thing I do when I see a reading like this is I find the central issue. And I'm seeing that right now in the center of our reading as the letter Kaf. And the letter Kaf is about power. It's a hand that is open, a palm. It's considered an open palm, and it is the first letter of the word koach. I'll pick that up so we can see it a little closer. It's the first letter of the word koach, but it also represents the word keter, which means crown. So it is about giving and receiving. It's about this exchange, the binary transformation of wealth and poverty. So this idea of extending your hand. Something is, the central issue here as I see it, is this balancing between being wealthy and being impoverished. And so however that resonates for you, in this case we have this this figure in the garden, and she's very wealthy. It seems like she's got 9 pentacles there. That's almost 10. She seems very relaxed in her garden. And these are the things. How does she balance being wealthy and being able to give what she can? And also, even if she is in wealth in terms of like bounty and garden in her earth place, she may have trouble with maybe resources that are liquid, let's say. She may have a lot of land, or she may have a lot of property, but maybe she has a difficulty purchasing things because there isn't enough cash flow on hand, whatever the case may be. So balancing that wealth and poverty, and also thinking about whether one is being oppressed or one is being oppressive, and trying to find the difference here. So whatever is coming up for you in terms of power, and that's power in terms of an exchange of wealth and poverty, is the central issue I'm seeing here. And I'm going to start going far left. That's what I'm considering the things that have come before. And the more distant past, we have this letter Dalet. And Dalet is a doorway. Traditionally, it's considered a gateway or some kind of threshold. But it also speaks to humility and humbleness, that poverty, again, this idea of being poor. The word dal means poor. So maybe in the distant past there was some poverty that existed before you're in your current state of power and somewhat opulent. So in the past we've had poverty, and we've also had the binary transformation of wisdom and foolishness. And it looks like, based on what I'm seeing here, that there was some wisdom that came in this interim time, with being able to invest wisely, because here we have this garden that is full of pentacles, and we have a little bit of power now. So something that's come in the distant past is this doorway, this gateway, something that has allowed a transition, that has allowed one to step out of poverty into something a little bit more powerful. And what has helped in the past is above the line we have the Samekh, and Samekh is the letter that begins the word Sovev. So it's about being surrounded, being protected. It's also, in the Paleo Hebrew, it is a thorn, and so because thorny hedges were used to protect a property or a garden, and since this gal is in a garden, and you can see those hedges around her, possibly with thorns in them, there's been some sort of protection, some kind of oversight, or some kind of security, that one has been surrounded with blessing, that has been surrounded with protection in the past, and that has helped us get to where we are now today. What has helped even more than that, up even higher, is the letter He. He is the letter that means presence, the presence of the divine, or being present. Hineni is the Hebrew word for here I am. So really leaning into one's presence. Some say that this letter is actually a dalet with an extra foot to it. So it's been gifted, this idea of this doorway has been gifted an extra foot so that it can move forward or stand steady. So we have the letter He, and it is the letter that means presence. And it's also the letter that can speak to action in the world. It's the number 5, so it speaks to the 5 fingers and using one's resources wisely. So again, we've got this this idea of a past that's poor and wisely used resources and protection around that. What was difficult in the past is the blank, the Ein Sof, not knowing what was going to happen, how things were going to turn out. And that's always challenging, right? So this is the idea of that without end, that blankness that came before all of creation and that will end all of creation eventually, and just not being able to see through the infinite to what will come. And so sometimes that blankness, that emptiness can be very frightening. And it seems like that's, for me, that's what it seems like it's speaking to, is that there was this period of time in the past where there was some fear, that we had this poverty, we had this protection, but we couldn't see it. Maybe it was a divine protection of some sort that made it very difficult to know what was happening. But presence has brought us through. And also the letter Beit at the top here, which means home. It means home and house and the place where one dwells. And that can be the planet Earth. It can be a literal home or any kind of building or structure. It could be an institute of learning or a place of worship as well. But some kind of structure that gives us security. And I think of it a lot of times as just the body itself, that the soul dwells in the body. So there's been some help around having a secure place to live, either in one's home or in one's body. Maybe that wisdom that came in the past allowed one to secure a home so that there wasn't so much fear around that impoverishment. And right now, we're in the place where we have a little bit of power. I'm going to move to the next thing that's not helpful, and that is the letter Kuf. Kuf is a letter that represents both holiness, the sacred, as well as the animalistic nature of a person. You can see it's also the first letter of the word Kof, which means monkey. And you can see a little bit of a monkey tail there. So there's some kind of animalistic nature, which is, when you think about monkeys, you see them hoarding perhaps food or fighting over resources. So there's something animal that needs to be balanced with the holiness of divinity that comes with being a human and being imbued with holiness from the divine. The Kuf is the foundation of sleep. So maybe there's been some challenges with sleeping recently, that we're not getting adequate rest. And again, that balance between animalistic nature and the idea of holiness, or maybe attempting to be holier than one is able to be under the circumstances. Maybe there's been an attempt to have that sort of piety, that piousness that is unpleasant, that there is this desire to appear pious when in fact one is just really trying to protect oneself. So that hasn't been helpful. But what that has brought us to next is the Yud, and the Yud is a seed, right? It's the first letter of the divine name, the Yud He Vav He. It is the smallest of all letters, and it's like that particle that makes up everything in the universe, the atom, that everything is created from these small parts. Every letter in the Hebrew alphabet is made up of a bunch of Yuds. So there's some kind of seed that's being planted either now or soon that will bring one toward the next thing. That with this power, with this security and this wealth, we're planting more seeds in our garden. Here we have the garden again, and here's the seed coming. Again, that smallest thing that can burst forth and become more. It can multiply in an exponential way. That if you have one seed and you plant it and it becomes an apple tree, then all of those apples are full of seeds that can also become apple trees And so there's so much potential within the Yud, and that's what's coming up next, which I love here, especially with this garden imagery we're going on. What's really helpful in the very near future is the Lamed, and the Lamed is about reaching up with heart, having hope, reaching up with heart toward the divine, and also planting oneself in the earth, because this letter, it reaches above the line, but it also kind of reaches down toward the earth. So once we have that connection with divinity, once we have that connection to what is sacred, we can plant ourselves. Or maybe once we've planted ourselves, we're able to reach up for divinity once we're secure in our place. So that's what's going to be helpful, is reaching up with heart. Lamed is the first letter of the word Lev, which means heart. So reaching in and finding our hearts in the situation and reaching up with heart to the divine, maybe with gratitude, in order to connect. And once we've connected and we are planted, there will be more coming in the future. And that next thing coming is the Resh. And Resh is the letter that begins the word Rosh, which means head. So it is a new beginning. It's the start of a thing. So we have the seed that's been planted, and we have the Rosh and the Resh. Resh is the binary transformation of seed and barrenness. And since it's on the path line, it says to me that we've got some seed that is going to start to sprout. Again, going back to the garden imagery here. We've got the seed that's about to sprout, and as we move forward a little bit, what may be challenging or fear-based is the letter Vav. And again, Vav is about connection. It's about connection with the divine and a little bit of humility. You can see that it's like a person standing tall with their head bowed. So it's going to be important to remain humble and remain connected. And maybe that's challenging. Maybe it's hard to do both, to reach up toward divinity, have that strong, tall spine, but have a little humility in it. So as we move forward, it's going to be important to reach up with humility toward divinity and remain connected, even if we're afraid of that. Know that that's the thing that's going to help us here. We have the same message, basically. Lamed is more about reaching up with heart, whereas Vav is just about standing tall and humble. But they're both about connection with the divine. And as we pull through that, the thing that it'll bring us to is the letter Pei. And Pei is the letter that represents the divine mouth speaking creation into existence. The Pei is a mouth, and it is that letter that represents the divine mouth using words to create all of the universe. So we also have that power. We've been given that power of speech as well. And it's really important, it looks like, in the final state here, to be able to manifest what we need to see in the world by speaking it aloud. Also, the Pei is this spiral that goes infinitely in and infinitely out into the microcosm of the body and out into the macrocosm of the universe. And so there's this idea of the infinite in it. It is the number 80, which is 8 times 10. 8 is the number that represents infinity. As you see, an 8 on its side looks like that infinity loop. And 10 times 8 is this ultimate manifestation of it. So we have the infinite coming. We have infinite resources. We have infinite ability to speak what we need to see into the world as we move forward. So I love this reading. So with those of you who chose the Nine of Pentacles, know that even if you came from humble beginnings, you have moved through with protection from your own wisdom and conservation of resources and protecting yourself with presence to the divine, finding your space in a solid, stable home, with the fear of the unknown, still moving forward into your current power position. That even though we have to balance this idea of our animal nature and our tendency to want to fight or grab, that we can move through that by reaching up with heart to the divine, that a seed is being planted soon, that a new beginning is coming from that. And even though we're challenging to remain connected and humble, in the end, we have infinite possibility. We have the infinite here, the ability to speak into into existence that which we would love to see in the world. So for those of you who chose the Nine of Pentacles, this has been your reading for today, and I wish you well, and I will see you here next time. Hello, card number 2. Those of you who chose the Queen of Pentacles as your theme for the reading, what we have is the Queen of Pentacles is the one who is sovereign over her resources, earthly resources, the fecundity of all things in the planet. She is a nurturing mother. She knows how to take care of herself and those under her realm, her tutelage. You can see that she is stable on her throne made of stone. Pentacles often corresponds to stone. She's sitting in this outdoor area where she is becoming one with and ruling over the earth. So the ultimate maternal earth mother here in our reading today, the Queen of Pentacles, really comfortable in her realm. So we're going to do a reading today. We're going to use the entire set of Hebrunes, and it's going to be a full spread. And the way I do that is we're going to set her over to the side here, and then we're going to take the entire set, spread it out on the table, remove all of the Hebrunes that are face down, and then see what we have left. Okay, wow. All right, let's see what we have here. Oh, I'm going to leave that one that is the Ein Sof. And then once we've got the face down Hebrunes removed, we're going to take the ones that are left and turn them so that they are upright. Makes it a little easier to read. And then this will be your reading. And generally how I do this is, I'm going to bring the whole set down a little bit so it's not in the shadow, is we take a look at which one appears to be the center, which is really clear in this reading, that there's this path line that goes through the center. And then for me, since I read left to right, that which is on the left is what's come in the past, and that which is on the right, which is what may come in the future. Things that are above the line are those things which are helpful or advisory, and things which are below the line are about challenges and fears. So let's start. We have in the center the letter Zion, and Zion is about sovereignty. It's a sword or a scepter. So love that with the Queen of Pentacles. She is holding a pentacle in her picture, but the Zion is about swords and scepters, about sovereignty, really. It's about feeling your own personal sovereignty in a situation. It is the letter that corresponds also to lightning, and so there's all this power that goes with it. It can be about wielding power, but mostly it seems to be about protection. A sword that is used for protection, not for war, and a scepter, which is what is given to a sovereign king or queen to rule over. And then lightning, which comes down from the divine. It is the letter that is affiliated with the month of Sivan, which is the month in which the Torah was given to Moses. So he's up in the clouds, and he's up in on the mountain, and the lightning and the thunder. That's what I think about when I think about Zion. Zion, yeah, being that sword or scepter and that manifestation of lightning coming down from the divine. So there's absolute power and sovereignty here. So that's our central issue, some kind of sovereignty, and I love that with the Queen of Pentacles here. What's come in our past, the furthest to the left here, I've got the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof is down below, and so below the central line. So I would say that this letter, or lack of a letter, which is the, it's the zero. It's that which came before all of time. That there is this infinite tahom, this what's called tohu vavohu, the void that exists before the creation of all things. And we have that scientifically too. Before the Big Bang, there was no space, there was no time. And it's this idea of that timelessness and that spacelessness that existed before all. So this being in the past and being below the line, there's a little bit of fear, I think, around not having anything. Maybe there's some poverty that comes with it as well, but there's something that has to do with the blankness, the unknown, the not knowing, the having nothing with nothing with which to work. But it is that material with which we work, that primordial chaos out of which all creation is born. So that's come in the past, this fear, this unknown, this unknowingness. And then the next letter that I have in our spread from left to right is the Tzadi. And the Tzadi is the letter that represents righteousness and justice. And because it is below the line, I'm going to again say that there's been some sort of injustice, that there's been maybe not righteousness, that there's been some imbalance of power or imbalance of riches, maybe equity having to do with, I don't know, it could be anything, some kind of inequity that's come in the past. It could be about slavery, it could be about race, it could be about gender, whatever it is where there's felt an inequity that's happened in your life or in the world, that this has caused some consternation, it's caused some fear, or it's caused a real challenge, that there's been this inequity that's come in the past. But now we're in this position where we're coming into power of some kind, our own personal sovereignty. What's been helpful before now is the Aleph, and the Aleph is the letter that represents the one. So it's the first letter of the alphabet. It is the number one, and it's about this connection and division with divinity. So you can see that there's a yud above and a yud below and a vav between, and that represents the knowledge that the divine is sovereign above and sovereign below, and that there's this connection between the two. But it's also a division, so there is sometimes a little challenging to see how the divine is in both places at once, but it is that oneness. It's taking the unity of divinity and extending it out into all matter, so that there is divinity in all things, and all of those things still add up to one, if that makes any sense. It's a little bit esoteric, but that's been what's helpful in this situation, is this oneness, recognizing that there is this oneness despite any injustice, despite any fear around the unknown, that there still is just one divine, that there's oneness within the universe, and that we need to understand that all of these things together, even though there seems to be billions and billions of stars and trillions and trillions of cells in our bodies, they all still add up to just one. We have trillions of cells, but only one body. We have trillions of stars, but only one universe. So this concept, this knowledge of the oneness, and maybe of faith in divinity, believing in that oneness, has helped us on our path to get to where we are now in our own personal sovereignty. And what's going to help us a little bit in the future here is the letter Mem. And Mem is the mother letter of water. It's one of the creation elements. And so we have this creation element of water, and it is about gestation. It's sometimes seen as a womb. You can see that it looks like a little bit like a container there. And it is the number 40, so it represents the 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. So something is going to be gestating. And there is also water involved. And it could be about water, it could be about getting into water or cleansing oneself. The word mikvah, which means a ritual bath, begins with the letter Mem as well. And then there's also just about water, that we are made of water, that there's this eternal well that exists in the universe that we can tap into at any time and drink from. That if we're feeling malnourished or dehydrated, we can reach up toward divinity and get some nourishing, refreshing water from the divine. So something that's coming in the near future, which is going to be a gestation, a cleansing, and nourishment that is coming for you in the near future. And what may be challenging in that case, in the next step, is the letter Dalet. And Dalet is a doorway. It's about walking through the threshold onto the next thing. And sometimes it's challenging to take that step. Sometimes when we're in that liminal space of the doorway, it's difficult to make ourselves walk through. And there's a little fear around what's on the other side. So, and the letter Dalet also corresponds to the word dal, which means poor. So there may be a fear of poverty, that we've come from lack and injustice, and now we're just stepping into sovereignty, but maybe we'll go back into poverty, so there's some fear there. But we need to walk through that doorway in order to get to the other side. That's the only way to the next thing, is through. So we need to think about when we're fearing that transition, when we're fearing that liminal space, it's important to reach back up toward that mem. Maybe do something that will cleanse. Maybe reach up to that that nourishing water that comes from divinity, and recognize that we're in a gestation period right now. And so it's sometimes, again, challenging to walk through a doorway when we're gestating, but trusting that that's what's happening. That even though there's a fear of losing what we have, maybe a poverty situation, or coming through the other side, not knowing what's going to be there. It's, again, back to the fear of the unknown. That's valid fear, but we need to work through it by trusting that there's nourishment and that there's gestation happening. And when we come through, we'll come through to the final letter here, which is the letter Yud. And the letter Yud is a seed. It is the smallest of all the letters, and yet all the letters are made up of series of Yuds. The Yud is the first letter of the divine name. So it speaks to just that beginning of divinity, that that seed or the sperm that gestates what it is that we've got coming. There will be a seed that's coming. We have this knowledge that in the future a seed will be planted, and it will be a seed that grows. That the Yud represents the atom in the universe, that it makes up all of material in the universe, that we have this knowledge that that seed is coming up in the future. So that's what's going to get us through here to the final thing. Resting in our sovereignty, even though there has been a fear of the unknown in the past, and perhaps injustice that we've had to wrestle with, that what's helped us get through is to know that all is one, all is oneness, and that in the final picture we'll be put back together with oneness, and the knowledge that the divine is there with us, connecting with us, as we are standing in our sovereignty now, with this power, the sword and the scepter that we have ruling over our realm, that we have gestation coming too. This fertility that comes with the Queen of Pentacles. She nurtures, and so she may be gestating here. But there's also this wateriness. There's maybe emotion that comes with water, that we have this this cleansing element that comes with a mikvah, that maybe, again, we need to cleanse what is necessary to cleanse, to gestate what's necessary to gestate. And even maybe though we're afraid of walking through the doorway, maybe that if we're afraid of falling back into poverty and losing some of the sovereignty, we need to still lean on that idea of feeling our emotions, gestating what needs to be gestated, and reaching up for cleansing. And that will bring us through to the Yud, to that new beginning, to that seed that's going to be planted, to that seed that once that seed is planted, it can produce myriad more seeds from it. If you plant a seed of a fig tree, for instance, how many seeds are there in each fig? I can't even count them. They seem infinite. So knowing that if we plant that seed and we can nurture it with our Queen of Pentacles here, with justice, with water, if we water that seed, that we will come through and have something new to show for it in the end. So for those of you who chose the Queen of Pentacles here, that has been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you here next time. Hello, card number 3, and you have the Three of Pentacles for your card. And the Three of Pentacles is about mastery. You can see here a stone cutter at their work, and they are consulting with the architects of the building and cutting into stone the designs that have been laid out for them. So for me, the threes often correspond to collaboration with other people. But in this case, this is a master at their work and consulting with other masters in their work to create this cathedral. I'm guessing, based on the designs there, it looks like it's a cathedral. So some kind of building, some kind of great edifice that is coming into fruition. So Pentacles often have to do with material wealth, or material, actually just like earth, actual fabric of stuff, as opposed to, you know, thought or emotion, or even, you know, passion. So this is more about manifestation in the real world. So that's what we have as our beginning, a Three of Pentacles. And the way we're going to do our reading today, I'm going to tuck him way over to the side here, because the way we do it is we put down the entire set of Hebrunes on the table, and then we remove all the Hebrunes that are face down, and then we do the reading with what is left. So that's what we're going to start with today. I'm going to mix them up and lay them down. All right. All right, so I'm going to take out all the face down, except for the one that's blank, because that one's the same up or down. All right, and then once we've got the face down ones out of the way, we are going to take the rest of these and turn them so that we can see upright what they are, easier to read. And then, this is interesting, and then, make sure, yep, that's the blank. We're going to read in such a way, I'm going to move this up so we can see, what is our central issue. The things that are on the path line are basically right in the center, and then whatever's above that path line we have that are helpful or advisory, and things that are below the path line are the things that are frightening or challenging in the situation. So interestingly, generally the central issue is going to be right in the middle here, and we have nothing. So that's interesting. Let me think. Let me listen in about that blank space in the middle. Yeah, so maybe we're in a time right now where we don't have anything to point at as far as what our issue is. There's something that's up, but we don't really know what it is. but we have a lot of other clues around it. So we're going to just go with that. And for me, I read left to right because I'm a native English speaker. So I start from the left and I move right. So I go furthest left, what we have here, and I'm going to count, this is the path line right here. So this is just slightly, it's basically on the path line, maybe slightly higher. We have the letter Beit. And the letter Beit is about home. It's about being secure in your space. It's also a beginning because it is the first letter of the Torah, which is Bereshit, in the beginning. So we have this first letter of Torah, which means something has begun in the past, and there's been a place for home and comfort and a place where we can dwell, a soul dwelling place. And it can be a building, it can be any kind of edifice, it can be a school or a place of worship or home. And since we have builders here, maybe we've built something in the past, something that has been there for us as a security, that we've had this this time of rest in our space. It is the letter that rules over the day Shabbat in the calendar. So in the past, we've had this secure space that's been built, that's been begun, and we've been able to rest in it. So that's where we start. And then as we move to the right from here, down below, I'm seeing in the next area is the Samech. And Samech is, it's the letter that represents being surrounded or boundaries. So it is the first letter of the word Sovev, which means surround. So it can be about setting up boundaries around or being surrounded with comfort. Since it's below the central line, I'm going to count this as being something that's uncomfortable, that there's been some kind of either issue with boundaries, the inability to set boundaries, or some kind of thorny matter, because the Paleo Hebrew of the Samech was a thorn. And you can see a little vestigial thorn here up in the upper left corner, because thorny hedges were used to surround properties, to protect livestock and to keep livestock in and to keep predators out. So there's some kind of issue with boundaries and or a thorny situation that has caused some discomfort in the past. Right down here. Next we have the letter that's also close to the path line, but it's a little low. I'm going to say, and that's the letter Shin. And Shin is one of the mother letters. There are 3 mother letters in the alphabet. Shin is the mother letter of the element of fire. It corresponds to the fires in the sky, the stars, the moon, the sun, all things that are burning, the flames of passion or anger. It can be love, it can be frustration or anger, but there's something on the path line in the recent past that has been passionate, fiery, hot. It also can have to do with the summer time. It does rule over the summer in the year. But in this case, I'm guessing there's been some kind of conflict. There's been some kind of heated discussion. And maybe, again, you've got a few people over here in this card that maybe there's been a couple of people involved in some kind of heated discussion about what's the right thing to do. What's the right thing to do next to build the structure we're trying to build together. And maybe that structure is a home or some kind of relationship that comes with home. So we have the fire here. The fire is, it's neither good nor bad. It just is. It's that heat element, that fiery element that is necessary for creation. But it can also be about cleansing. It can be about burning something so that it can grow better. There's this ancient tradition of the slash and burn in a field, that the field needs to be burned so that the nutrients from the ash can go into the soil and something new can happen. So although it seems destructive in the moment, it is actually providing necessary minerals for the plants that have been are going to be planted. So there's been some kind of fire, there's been some kind of passion, there's been some kind of heat that's come up, maybe in discussion around whatever this project is. And moving next, we have the Yud, and this is above the path line as I see it. The Yud is a seed. It's planting something new. It is the first letter of the divine name, so it has to do with beginnings and about that primordial material, those seeds, those atoms that make up the entire universe. So planting a seed for that is provided by divinity. It is also the letter that begins the word yod, which means hand, so about handiwork as well, since we're dealing with material stuff in the world. It could have to do with using one's hands. But it's about, again, a beginning, a seed being planted. It's a foundation of sexuality. So it can have to do with planting a human seed, or it could be about planting a seed in a garden. And this time of year, where I am, it's a good time to plant seeds. But it's above the path line, so I'm going to say that's going to be a useful thing. Maybe it's a good time to plant some seeds right now in whatever is going on for you in this situation. And above that, even higher, we've got the Vav. And the Vav is the letter that means and. It's about connection. Again, connection with people. We've got a couple people here. And I think that these three cards, like I said, have to do with connection with others. So, and in this case, it may be about connecting with others, but it's definitely about connecting with divinity, because it's so high on the reading. I'm going to say that it's about connecting with one's higher power, whatever that looks like to you. It could be your higher self, but there's also a bowed head here. You can see it's a straight spine with a slightly bowed head, so it's about humility, about connecting to divinity with humility, connecting to higher self with humility, and standing tall nonetheless, and rooting down into the ground, really grounding oneself and reaching up with humility toward some kind of greater power. So that's going to be very useful in this time we're going through, this blank space in the center here. Below the line, next we have the letter Dalet, and Dalet is a doorway. It's about passing through a threshold. Perhaps there's something challenging, and we are standing in this space. And interestingly, in this card, we have basically two archways, two doorways, and maybe there's a decision to be made. Maybe there's more than one door that you have to choose. But regardless, there is a necessity to pass through that doorway in order to come out to the other side, depending on, what needs to happen next. But you have to pass through the doorway in order to find out. And that's challenging. Sometimes it's very painful to have to move from one thing to another. So that being on the lower line makes me think that there's a fear around that, or a challenge around passing through that doorway and getting out of whatever liminal space you're in right now. Maybe choosing, again, like we have two doorways here, choosing which doorway is the right one to go through, or just moving on ahead. Next, I'm seeing way up high the letter Pe. And Pe is about, it's the mouth. It's the word that means mouth. And it is a representation of the divine mouth speaking creation into existence. So you have this concept of speaking what you would like to see in the world. What would you like to see manifest in the world? And saying it out loud. Either you can say it out loud to yourself or to your higher self, or you can write it down. Maybe you need to say it to another person, but it needs to be spoken. Whatever it is you want to see in the world. Not to complain about what you don't have, but to actually think about the positive aspect of what you do have. Because this is the binary transformation of ugliness and beauty, grace and ugliness. So we want to use our words gracefully. We want to be able to speak positively about what we would like to see in the world, instead of saying, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. You want to say, this is what I would love to see. Really focus on the positive of what you would like to see. And since this is so high on the reading, I'm guessing that's going to be the next thing right now, is to imagine and manifest what you would like to see by speaking it into existence. And the Pe is the number 80, so it represents the ultimate manifestation of the infinite. So something that you say now may cause waves out into the universe to create something longer lasting than you can even imagine. So it's important to speak out what you would like to see positively into the universe, and let that then come to fruition. And that's our Pe. Okay, so moving along, the next thing we have is the Zion, and that's down low. The Zion is about sovereignty. It is a sword or a scepter, or a lightning bolt. It can be a lightning strike. So the Zion is about power, but specifically personal sovereignty, being able to step into your own sovereignty. And in this reading, the way I'm seeing it is there's a challenge with that. Maybe there's a fear of saying what you need to say. Maybe there's a fear of wielding your power for fear of it not going well. But whatever the case is, when you find yourself in that position of feeling like you aren't a sovereign being or that you don't have power in the situation, it is important to remember that you are sovereign, and that if you have an issue with it, that you can bring yourself back up to this pay and speak what you would like to see. Even if you're feeling low, even if you're feeling like, oh, I don't think anyone's going to respect my authority here. It's important to say what you need to say out loud and get yourself out of that fear or challenge. The next letter in our line here is the letter Mem, and that's very low on the reading. The letter Mem is one of the mother letters. Again, it's the mother letter of water. And it's also about gestation. So there's something maybe having to do with gestation, but waiting for something to be born. It's very challenging sometimes to wait when you want to see things coming out in manifesting right away. So maybe it's a little challenge. Mem being the number 40, representing the 40 weeks of gestation in the human body. So we have this watery, we have this emotion, because it is the mother letter of water. There's emotion involved here. This idea of gestation, about waiting for the right time for things to be born. That may be challenging. And also, it's first letter of the word mikvah, so there may be some cleansing that needs to happen, and that also can be frightening or challenging. Sometimes cleansing is not as pleasant as one might think. Sometimes it requires letting things go that you don't really want to let go. So, but that's what's required for gestation and birth. So whatever's frightening about that, again, move yourself back up to this idea of speaking what you would like to see in the world and trusting that things will turn out in the right timing. Next, we have up high the letter Nun, and Nun is again about humility. It's Naaman, which means humbleness. So we're being requested to be humble in the world, to not be a slave or a servant, but to humble ourselves appropriately, not to be humiliated, but to find your right place, being no more than your place, no less than your space, or something like that. That's the Musar idea of humility, which is anava. So it's important to find humility right now. This is above the central line, so it really feels like that's essential, especially when you've got Vav up here with that bent head as well. So something about humility, not saying that you need to give up your sovereignty, but that humility is essential for getting through our situation here. We need to find our humility so that we can stand with those that we're conversing with, that we're negotiating with, and still be who we need to be in this situation. So humility is essential. And then we move into the next Hebrew, and here we have the Ein Sof, and this is the blank. It is on the lower line, and it is that idea of the unknown. So the unknown unknowns. So here we have this this fear that's coming from we don't know what's going to happen next, and that is really challenging. It seems like really tied to this mem here, that we have this gestation period. We don't know what's going to happen, and we're afraid. We're having a real challenge sitting with it, but we have to sit with it. We have to sit with it in humility in order to get through the next place. And here, finally, we have something that's on the path line. It is the letter Gimel. And Gimel is about forward movement. It's a foot. So it's about walking forward. It's a camel as well. So it's about walking forward, and walking forward with justice, walking forward with determination. So the Gimel is the third letter of the alphabet, and it is the binary transformation of peace and evil. So it has this idea of we're walking forward, but we need to choose to walk forward with peace. And when I say peace, the word in Hebrew is shalom, which means wholeness. So it's important to remember that we're walking forward in wholeness, and wholeness includes both darkness and light. So we have to embrace both in order to move forward. But there is a time coming in the near future where forward movement will occur. And that's something really helpful and important to remember. And what's going to get us through that is this idea of kadosh. Kuf is the letter, and the word that it represents is kedusha or kadosh, which means sacredness. Finding the sacredness in our situation, knowing that what we're doing matters, big picture, much larger than anything that we can even fathom right now. So we have this idea of holiness is sometimes how it's translated, but I like to think of it as sacredness, that which is sacred, something that is designated for divine service. So that's a thing to really keep in mind right here as we move forward, is that this is all for some higher purpose that we can't see. Things are sometimes difficult, and we have this thing to keep in mind, is that this is a holy act. What the thing we're building, the structure that we're building, whatever it is, metaphorical or otherwise, is a holy building. It is maybe the design that comes from divinity, and that we're trying to make it manifest in the world. And so we have to remember and keep that in mind in order to get forward, move forward with this Gimel. And that will bring us in the end to Aleph. And Aleph is the letter that means one. It's the oneness. It's that the Yud above and the Yud below and the Vav between. So we have divinity above and divinity below and connection between that. And we will become connected with divinity, that we will bring ourselves back to oneness, that we'll maybe come to one mind. Again, think about these three people here. We've got 1, 2, 3. And so we think about those three people coming together into one and connecting all of their power in order to build the thing that they set out to build, whatever that is, whether it's, again, physical thing, an emotional thing, a physical structure, or a relationship, or a metaphorical house. So that's the thing to keep in mind, is that when we get through all of this, when we've come from the initial building of the house, that there's been some kind of passionate fire thing going on, that there's been some thorniness going on, we have to remember that we've planted a seed, that we come to it with humility, that we have to step through that doorway, that we speak into existence what we'd like to see in the world. Remember that we're sovereign, even if it's challenging, that we have more humility here. We have this gestation period, the unknown, the walking forward, the sacredness, and back together with one. And all of this will come to manifest even though we're in this blank space and we don't know what's happening. So that is what I'm seeing today in this reading, this very long reading. I hope that it was useful for you, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much for watching.